What if I told you that the perfect man did exist, but he was cursed? I mean, he's just a complete handicapper. East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. Might be the best I've ever seen. He could be the best looking guy in all of horse racing. I mean, he gives Matt Bernier a run for his money. I mean, we all saw it. He was minding his own business, walking back from the bathroom. Hottest girl on the bar just grabs him and says, "Reel me in." Turns out you can't always be that lucky, though.
Zulu Alpha charges up the rail under Tyler Gaffleon and takes the lead late. Zulu Alpha wins the Pegasus World Cup Turf.
Happy Thursday, everybody. It's Josh here with On the Wrong Lead, and you know what that means. It's time to watch me try and open up a bottle. These are actually easy to open because I got the little two things here, but got a nice little bottle of Sazerac Rye. It's a single barrel pick from the old local grocery store, actually. A buddy of mine picked this up for me because apparently it's sold out in one day because people here are just crazy for single barrel picks. But speaking of Sazerac, let's bring in Mr. Caleb Knight. Where you live in the land of Sazerac, where it can be found for $17 a bottle.
That is true. It used to be the land of Buffalo Trace and Eagle Rare as well, but times are getting tough down here. So maybe the baby Saz may be going by the wayside before too long. So who knows?
That's actually funny because so my buddy, he works for a wine company and he's just on the road constantly. He's just basically always checking on accounts, doing stuff. And I told him I was having problems finding Buffalo Trace. And so he calls me one day. He's like, "Hey," he's like, "I think I solved your Buffalo Trace problem." And so the other day he dropped off literally 6 bottles of Buffalo Trace at my house. So shout out to my buddy Dan for hooking it up. I just like having it around because it's a good sipper. And here it's like $26, $27 a bottle, and I don't think it gets much better around that price. But a man who basically tips $27 every time he goes to the liquor store because he only buys the finest of whiskeys such as Oban, Mr. Mark Capitan. Mark, what you said you were very excited today because you were able to find the bottle of Oban 14, which apparently has been hard to find by you.
Yeah, Oban 14s, or any of the Obans have been really hard to find up by me. Walked in, they had a case of 14 came in, and they had it on sale of all things. So I definitely picked myself up one. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Oban 14. I don't know. It's really expensive here, though. It's like almost $100. I don't know how much it costs out by you.
It was like 60.
Oh no, it's like $90 here or something.
Yeah, I think
wow, that's crazy. It's like I think it was actually 60 flat.
Yeah, for 60 I would buy it for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's good, but like at $90, really the only thing I'm buying at $90 nowadays is what's the Abunda. So that's like kind of my go-to.
It was fun. Range. It was funny with the Oban because I was down in Charlottesville and went out and grabbed drinks with our good friend PDT, and he wasn't really a Scotch guy, definitely a bourbon guy, knows bourbons, whatever. And so he wanted to try something. So they had Oban 18, and I had him try some of that, and he went, "Oh, I can get into some of this. This is good stuff." So, but that's really pricey. I
sent him some rum. This like bottle, because he sent me some samples, and so I sent him some samples back what I had, and I sent him some rum, and I don't think he was a big fan of it, but I think he's a big fan of tequila too. So shout out to PDT. Hopefully we'll we'll run into him up in Saratoga. I think his plans are still up in the air, but hopefully we make that happen. But yeah, it's Belmont Stakes week, and Caleb, I was told that you were ready to go on a rant about these cards this weekend. So we'll get the people excited for that. And oddly enough, the rant does not involve the turf marathon division.
It actually doesn't. That's like one of the few races that
So,
I have no complaints about.
yeah, this is going to be.
Well, hold on. There's one horse in there I know you have complaints about. So let's not go too far.
I've changed my tune on that horse.
Really?
I'm not saying I like him in the race, but Channel Maker he's become Tom Brady for me at this point. It's just like you hate him for so long, and like he's like old as hell, and like still just like out there like competing at a high level. I mean, it's not that I want him to like win the Super Bowl or think he's even the best quarterback, but you know what? I respect him. You just do your thing. We're cool now.
Well, let's just jump right into it here. We're trying to cover 6 races here at least. If you guys got questions, or if you guys want us to touch on any other races on Friday after this race, it's the only race we're really going to talk about here on Friday is the Grade 3 Intercontinental here, 6 furlongs on the turf, for fillies and mares 4-year-old and up. Grade 3, pretty decent field here, I believe. And I took note. Yeah, we have Caravel is going to be kind of like your lukewarm favorite here at 4-1. But you got a full field of 13 in this race. Mark, I know a horse that's near and dear to your heart is in this race. So I don't know if you wanted to kind of take first pass at this race and wax poetic here.
There's actually multiple horses that are near and dear to my heart in here, but we can get into those as we go along. I thought, of the 2 days of racing, this is arguably the most competitive field. I think this is one of your spots you're most likely to get a price. And, Caleb and I, as much as we do argue all the time, we do normally end up on similar horses. We end up, kind of aligning for the most part on the picks that we have. And we talked about this race earlier, and we are completely different here. So I think that just kind of tells you this field is really wide open and really interesting. I think you have to start with, what's your take on Caravel? 4-1, obviously lukewarm morning line. I think there wasn't a lot of excuses in that last out at Churchill. 7 horse, Josh.
Oh my God, why is it 4 horse?
And there wasn't a lot of excuse, I thought, in that turf sprint. Just kind of badly beaten by everybody. Never, I realized the horse was on a pretty good pace, and finished okay, but just when a horse is bet down in a big field to that short of a price, you expect quite a bit more. And obviously the Cox Barn, occasionally they do throw clunkers, but I didn't really get super excited about Caravel. One of the horses that Josh is talking about that I am though super excited about is the 6 Robin Sparkles. I know Caleb is. I know the knock on Robin Sparkles is every time she stepped up in class and run versus better company, she's kind of tossed a clunker. She doesn't, she seems like she kind of is a black type and she really doesn't want this level of company. But I don't know if she's ever been this much controlling speed, in her past few races. She's in really good form now. She is a homebred by our stable. That's why she's near and dear to my heart. I'm affiliated with Hibiscus Stables. Good friend runs it, and I do have a massive soft spot for her. I don't know if she's good enough to wire this field, but she's gonna, if she breaks, which she normally does, she should get super loose and kind of at least dictate the pace complexion of this race. She might not be good enough to wire it, but I think she's going to try to take him as far as she can on the front end, and I think there's a pretty good chance that could be quite far. So, where did you guys end up here?
I guess real quick, I want to ask you what you think of this pace scenario, because I didn't think it was super clear. It seemed like Robin Sparkles might be the only like true need to lead type in this race, but I don't know, like. I always hate making these guesses in New York turf, trying to figure out like, hey, I know Luis Saez is going to send, he's going to go. So I know Robin Sparkles is going to get out there in the front end, but like, how loose are we talking here? How slow, how fast are we going? Like I kind of had a really hard time trying to decipher the pace scenario here.
My biggest issue with Robin Sparkles is I think she's a sort of I don't know. I almost want to call like a Shackelford type, the kind of horse that has one gear. She wants to go at a certain speed, and she runs that way all the time. I don't think Sayers can slow her down. I don't think she's the kind of horse that wants to be controlled or rated. I think she's just going to go and try to get brave on the front end. That's how she's won every single race she's ever won. I don't think she's, I guess technically 3 back, she did pass a horse. She was in second by a head at one point in that race, but I think she's got a lot of natural speed. She should set everybody else up behind her. I don't think it's going to be a crazy contested fast pace where you see them dropping, 21 flat, but it seems like her last 3, she's gone 21-4. That's probably what she goes here to open it up.
Yeah, I don't like the same horses as Mark, but I kind of see the pace the same way. In the Robin Sparkles, as you're controlling speed in here, how loose she gets probably depends on what the connections of maybe Illegal Smile decide to do, or perhaps Caravel, who's been known to be forwardly placed. Maybe even a horse like Jouster, who is more of a route speed than sprint speed, but clearly the game plan is not going to be to break dead last again, so would expect her to be a little more forward. So I think the pace, I don't think it's going to be crazy up front. I don't think I want a deep closer, but I don't think it's going to be Robin Sparkles out there with a 3-length cushion either. I think it'll be honest.
So who do you end up landing on here, Caleb?
Yeah, so I don't like Robin Sparkles because it's kind of Mark covered it. I don't like the class angle, even if she does kind of seem like lone speed in here. I kind of like Caravel, but this isn't really a race that I feel like I want to settle on a short price. Her last races maybe don't look that good on paper, but Caravel maybe just isn't good enough to beat the boys. But if you look at her record purely against fillies and mares, it paints a much different picture. So she'll probably make my ticket, but isn't one I'm super excited to use. The 2 horses that I did like as my top, kind of like co-top choices here, the number 1 Star Divine and the number 9 Illegal Smile. But the number 1 Star Divine is probably my top pick in here. She ran a couple really nice races to kick off her career. She ended up winning the Galway Stakes up at Saratoga, where she actually beat Illegal Smile by a head there. She had a really wide trip that day. She was 6 or 7 wide in most of the race, so that's probably a better race than it even looks on paper, especially when you factor in the fact that Illegal Smile came out of that race and then ended up winning 2 really nice allowances at Keeneland in the fall and then again in the spring for Wesley Ward. So that was a pretty live race. Star Divine came back last time at Keeneland in the Giants Causeway and was a good second. She was never beating Campanelli that day, but there probably wasn't a filly or mare on the turf sprints that were going to beat Campanelli that day. She's just really good right now. She's a multiple Group 1 winner overseas, which is just an incredible accomplishment, and she just absolutely freaked that day. I thought Star Divine ran a fine race to run second. That was her first start in a pretty long layoff of 7 or 8 months. I think she'll be a little more sharp today, and it does give me a little bit of encouragement that the Abreu barn, which started off the meet really, really cold, has been able to put together a few winners in the last week or so, and it seems like his barn's waking up a little bit. So I like Star Divine in here. I'm not thrilled about the draw, and she may need to work out a trip because she's not fast enough to get the lead, but she probably will be shuffled back a little bit. Illegal Smile is the other one who I think is just in really good form right now. One of the very rare Wesley Ward horses who perhaps is better at 4 than they were at 3 or than they were at 2. But this horse has ran 2 absolute cracker races, last 2 races at Keeneland, has enough speed to be involved early in a race that, like we talked about, doesn't have a ton of early speed. And if you're looking at time form, that last out race is pretty much the best race anybody has in the field, where she had a very comfortable 2-length lead where she kind of sat off of a pace that ended up being on the swift side, was very patient, very well handled, well managed, and kicked clear. So second off the layoff for her as well. She's the other horse I like in here. They're both 10-1, which is just crazy to me. I don't know if you get that, but those are both horses who I like quite a bit.
Yeah, I thought the line on Illegal Smile was pretty bad. I mean, that was the horses that Caleb and I talked about earlier when we were chatting. That's the one we both had in common. I think Illegal Smile in here makes a ton of sense. Seems to be in really good form right now. Both those Keeneland races were absolutely huge. Seems to be she's a bit of a I don't know. It seems, I guess it seems to be maybe he's just figured this one out, recently and kind of gotten her, stringing them together, and she's gotten a little better at 4, and she seems to be in just really good form right now. So I think that line's probably pretty bad. The other horse that I was a little interested that we haven't talked about yet, sorry to hopefully, I know Josh, you haven't spoken up yet, but is the 10 Flower Point. I thought there was if you think that somebody like Illegal Smile presses Robin Sparkles and they get a little bit silly on the front end, and maybe the turf's a little bit tiring. I thought of the closers, of the ones that are going to be sort of that one-run closer type, I thought Flower Point in here was super interesting. Her figures fit. And, I realize she's cutting back a little bit in distance, which also is going to make her more of the one-run closer type. But, she's, again, another horse that seems to be in fairly decent form right now. And, is a horse that's shown she does like this Belmont surface, which I always like to see.
So I've decided that I'm never taking notes ever again. Because, why even just take notes when you guys are just going to say everything that I've written down? So, basically, I kind of came up with 3 horses in the spot. One horse I was a little interested in, but is out in the parking lot, was the 13 Miss J. McKay. I just don't know, going 6 furlongs, being out in post 13, if this horse can get it done. I think that this horse does fit decently. You get Rosario, who's one of the best in turf sprints, although you never know what kind of ride you're going to get. But I was definitely interested in Miss J. McKay, but I think the post is going to be kind of detrimental for her out there. I liked the Legal Smile, and I liked Robin Sparkles, both Robin Sparkles for the pace scenario, and Illegal Smile, because that last time form figure just was really hard to ignore. That horse is just, I don't know, almost towers over. It's just a really good fig coming into it. The horse looks like he, is, like you said, figured something out. Ran a really nice race last out. But I feel like Mark, because my top pick is going to be the 7 Caravel here. This is just this must be opposite day or something, because I really landed on Caravel, because Caravel's beaten a lot of the horses in this spot. And isn't this just like a huge class drop for Caravel coming out of that last race? And I know, Caravel ran 6th in that last race, but that speed figure still holds up, I think, on time form to the rest of this field. And now you're telling me that going in against lighter company, 4-1 seems like a fair price. I don't know what you're going to get in this race, because it does look fairly wide open, but and the lines do look a little wonky. But Caravel, I know, is kind of the lukewarm favorite in this spot, but was the horse I like the most. And I'm definitely going to be having some of the 9 and the 6 on my tickets here. So I did see in chat Kevin also liking the 9 there, Legal Smile, saying he's ready to go at the top of the stretch. Win if Robin Fades could be the horse to close. And then Jimmy Two Eyes agreeing with Caleb, saying that Star Divine, looking forward to smashing the double with Latruska. So, you got anything else to add there, Mark? I know you're words.
No. The one thing is, I do think that Illegal Smile probably sits the best trip in here. She's gonna be able to sit off Caravel. You're gonna have, basically, Kendrick's gonna have all sorts of options with what to do with her. So she's fairly interesting. And the one other horse I did like, and I'm going to get beaten up for playing the same angle over and over again. But this 8 horse, probably the longest price on the board, probably rightfully the longest price on the board, Assertive Style. You're getting a horse that, Javier Castellano and Tom Morley, and I think I've talked about that a million times about how those two tend to produce a lot of winners together. It's a horse that it looks like Tom had claimed this one out of some races at the fairground with the intent of getting it back onto turf. They did take a dirt try last out, which went fine. They got her black type, or she was 3rd in a G3. But they're going back to what I think is probably your best service. If you're a time form person, that 2-back turf race, that 5.5 at the fairgrounds, actually is, it's too slow to win this, right? But it's a race that is much better than it sort of appears on paper. And, she's the kind of horse that, maybe she can't win this, but she's the kind of 30-1 that could, clunk up for second, third, fourth, right? But probably third or fourth are more likely. And if you can find those kind of horses that you're okay building around, I think it's pretty interesting. And she's not sort of a one-run type. She'll be kind of rolling late, I would imagine, a little bit off the pace and kind of trying to pick up the pieces. And again, that sort of clunk up, second, third, fourth type of type.
I mean, if Chris Hartman and Mitchell Murrow couldn't win with this horse, why do you think that Morley and Castellano? That's like the Louisiana version of your Morley Castellano.
So Landeros won up on the horse. So the horse must be an absolute monster, right? Like I mean, there's no other way to go about it.
All right. Well, that was Let's go ahead and let's keep going. Let's move on to race 7, the Ogden Phipps on Saturday here. Mile and 16th on the dirt, fillies and mares, 4-year-old and up. I honestly wrote one word down in my notes, and that was Latruska. So I didn't have much to add in the spot. I mean, I think I'm just going to single Latruska and just go with it. But this is a pretty, this is a pretty strong field here of 5. I mean, if you were going to have a 5-horse field of older fillies and mares, I think that these are the 5 you get. So, I mean, who's missing?
Is She Dares the Devil still in training?
I mean, she got the pants beat off her last time.
I mean, I know she did, but she's the only horse that kind of jumps to mind.
So I'm not sure what the deal is with her, but I haven't heard anything about her retiring. So,
but I mean, I'm going with Latruska here. I think Latruska is going to go to the front. I mean, we'll see what search results does, but search results hasn't exactly gunned it for the lead or even gotten the lead in any of her starts. So I don't know. I think that Latruska gets out there on the lead and just doesn't stop. But I don't know, Mark. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, I can't fault Latruska. Latruska's been, obviously, quite the talent for a number of years now. She loves to win, and she's it's really hard to fault her at this point in her career. The one horse I am super interested in here that I think is the most likely horse to beat Latruska is Malathaat, the 3. You're getting a horse that arguably won the Double Dog Dare, but probably needed that last start. The figures didn't come back huge for that. It just, seemed like a horse off the somewhat long layoff that needed one. I know Todd's don't normally need one, but I would imagine he's pointing this one for a summer campaign. That Keeneland was sort of the warm-up race, runs here, runs a couple of races at Saratoga, Person Lenson maybe, and then points for the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And oftentimes horses take a step from 3 to 4. So, you're getting a horse that I think is every right to take another step forward. And if she fires back to, her Distaff or her Alabama, those figures are every bit as good as what Latruska's run. So I think that she's a very interesting face. And I have a feeling Latruska goes off very short here. I could see Latruska being 4 to 5 or something. And if that happens, you're going to get a lot of value on somebody like a Malathaat.
Yeah, I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm with Josh. Latruska beats this field by probably 3 is my guess. I really want to make the argument for search results, because I think she's a horse that's really improved. I don't know what the whole experiment was last year with the 7 furlong sprint races on the cutback. I always thought she was best, not going a mile and an eighth necessarily, but kind of going a mile, 1-turn mile and a 16. I thought was right up in her wheelhouse. She loves Belmont. I mean, she handles an off track. And that last race in the Ruffian was as good of a race as pretty much anyone has run, with the exception of maybe some of Latruska's top efforts, which we haven't seen in a couple of starts. But I guess my problem is I just don't know that she's really going to be able to set off Latruska, overtake her in the stretch, and then still be able to hold off the closers. I wish there was maybe one more speed type in here. But alas, can't have everything the way that we want. But search results would be the horse if I was going to try to beat Latruska, it would be with search results. But I think Latruska is just too good for this field.
Is there any chance they try to press Latruska with search results? I mean, we've seen what happens every time they let Latruska get away with murder on the front end. Is there any chance that Chad tells Arad, hey, I want you sitting on her hip. I want you to at least press her. I don't know if that necessarily softens her up enough for anybody else to get to her late, but can you see that from a pace scenario, or you just think Latruska gets, how it is on paper, Latruska gets stupid loose?
I think at how it is on paper, Latruska gets loose. I don't think, search results is probably only compromising her own chances if she tries to really put that much pressure on Latruska. Odds are they both probably finish up the track. So my guess is the plan for search results will be to just sit a length off, make your move early enough to put yourself into contention. And if you can't quite get there, you still probably run second. So that's how, especially with Irad, he's not a guy that's really known for going head to head on the leads. So I would be surprised, especially if he's going to go duel against his brother, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I got nothing to add but coughs over here.
Sound like me.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's been weird. Like, I've just had this like cough all of a sudden develop this week, and it's just like I'll be fine all day, and then all of a sudden I just have like a coughing fit for like half hour. It's the weirdest thing.
Probably just allergies. I think everybody's kind of, at least around here, everybody's sort of got allergy stuff going on.
All right. Well, let's not overthink a 5-horse field and do something different than we normally do for good old Stephen Fox. And let's move on to the Jaipur here. Grade 1, 6 furlongs on the turf. And we got a field of, I should have written this down, 13. While I cough up a lung over here, Caleb, why don't you walk us through this race?
Yeah, so this is a fun race, and probably, I would say, maybe the best race on Saturday from a betting perspective. These turf sprints, to me anyway, always come up really competitive. They generally draw large fields, which is one of the very few times you can actually say that on this Belmont card. But, I think it's a fun race. Looking at it, I do think the race goes through Arrest Me Red, who is really in good form right now. I mean, wins in 4 of his last 5. Just a little bit unlucky in that Gulfstream effort back in the Silks Run. Had a really nice win in the turf sprint at Churchill where he was able to kind of just sit off a pace, ease back a little bit, let the front runners go, and then just blow by, turn him for home. The second place horse, Brand, came back to win a grade 3 at Santa Anita next out. So, when it comes to turf sprints, Wesley Ward is probably the first name that jumps to mind. You get Irad Ortiz up. The race certainly goes through him, and I don't need to spend a ton of time making the case for him, I don't think. The one horse I did want to talk about, although I think this is probably going to be somewhat of a spread race, is the number 11, Chasing Artie. So he also exits that common race with Arrest Me Red and Gregorian Chant and a few others. And if you look at that race, I would encourage anyone who hasn't already watched it to go back and watch that replay. This horse has an awful, awful, awful break. You look at the way this horse typically runs. Generally up near the front, has a couple wire-to-wire wins to his name, and he comes out 12th in a field of 13 by a dozen lengths. Just a horrible break. And, if he didn't run at all, then maybe there wouldn't be anything noteworthy there. But this horse actually still puts in a really honest run, and you may see that he finished 8th. Okay, that's not that impressive, but he makes up about 10 lengths from about the halfway point in the race until the finish line, and he's coming on strong. I think the extra half furlong here is really going to work to his advantage. I think he's a horse that wants more like 6 as opposed to the 5 or 5.5 he's been dealing with. And he has speed in a race that doesn't seem like it's loaded with front runners. There isn't a ton of early speed in here. Arrest Me Red probably goes, and then maybe a horse like True Valor has a little bit of gas. But I would probably expect to see a horse like Chasing Artie sit 2nd or 3rd. And I'm not convinced that he can't take another big step forward, 3rd off the layoff here, and pull off a nice upset.
Yeah, I think for me, this race really started with what's your take on Arrest Me Red? Arrest Me Red obviously ends up in the winner's circle quite a lot. 4 of the last 5, winning. And obviously he's in extremely good form, exactly like Caleb said, 3 of 3 at the distance. And I would have no qualms with somebody saying, hey, this is a big spread field. I'm just going to single Arrest Me Red and try to get my value by being skinny where other people are spready. I ended up sort of on a Recipe Red and then two other fairly big prices in here. The first one of them ones I think Caleb already mentioned, True Valor. I thought True Valor was actually fairly interesting. They saw fit to ship this horse to Meydan. They ran, fine in that, Alcaz sprint. And then came back and obviously had the tune-up race at Laurel. They won, so that you get rid of that sort of Dubai bounce type of angle. And I think there's every opportunity here for for this one to kind of return back to prior form. And if you look at some of the rest or some of True Valor's races, the last few, some of those fit in here where they would be fast enough to be able to actually beat a Resmi Red or actually be faster than the best that Resmi Red has ever run. So I thought True Valor at a bit of a price in here was sort of super interesting. And the other horse that I liked, and I know Josh has a thing for South American horses, so the 9, who I'm going to absolutely brutalize this name, Filo De Ariana. I thought that horse was actually super interesting in here. Horse that went 3 for 3 in Brazil. I mean, I realized what are you beating? Shipped up. Mark Cassie ran this one in a Woodbine allowance. And if you look at the figure out of that Woodbine allowance with Emma Jean, and I don't really know what he was beating that day. None of us really do. But that figure came back absolutely massive, and that figure's kind of super interesting here. All sorts of issues in the Shakerstown. I realize the trip notes don't actually show it, but if you watch you do a little bit of trip handicapping and watch that one, the horse had a ton of problems and was floated, really wide around the far corner. And it probably the little bit of a stretch out here probably actually helps this one. I thought it was an interesting spot, getting Jose Ortiz up. And at 20 to 1, I was a little intrigued.
Well, there goes Caleb again, blowing up my spot. I think the one horse you guys didn't talk about in here that I kind of liked, but I don't know what to do because there's a little thing called Dubai Bounce, but the winner of last year's race, Casa Creed, coming back here, and I think doing what Casa Creed does best is going 6 furlongs. So. I'm interested to see what Casa Creed does here. Single race, I think he's going to be too short for me to want to do anything with. But I think horizontally, he's going to be a horse I'm going to use. Like I said, I'm a little concerned about the, coming back from Dubai, but I don't know. I think that this is the right type of race, the right spot for Casa Creed. Obviously, Arrest Me Red is going to be very tough to beat in this race. I mean, just blew the doors off in that turf sprint, I'm not going to get beat by this horse horizontally in the spot. It makes it kind of hard because especially this sequence, there's just so many horses. I at least have 2 just dead singles in this sequence, so it's kind of hard taking the chalk on what's going to be 2 short prices, but I think I'm going to try and find other spots to get around chalk besides this race. So Arrest Me Red's going to be really tough, I think, in here. And then Caleb talked about my other horse, the 11 Chasing Artie. Just watch the replay. I mean, that's about as bad of a start as you can have. One thing to note about Chasing Artie is Chasing Artie does have a bit of a history of kind of missing starts. Hopping at starts at least, so not as bad obviously as what happened last time, but I think both Caleb and I like this horse going into that Churchill Downs race. That race 2 back at Gulfstream fits in with the rest of this crowd, and I mean if you get anywhere near 15 to 1, I think it's worth taking a shot. I think if this horse breaks, this horse is going to be right in there with them. Another horse. This is probably more of an underneath play, but I am a little interested in this 10 Smoking J. I don't necessarily know if he can win this race, but I definitely think that this is a horse that could get up for second or third if you're going to be playing some kind of exactas or tries. I think you're going to get an honest price on Smoking J. Ran second to Karatari in the turf sprint at Pimlico. It's getting a little bit more distance. And it has won at 6 furlongs here at Belmont before, although it wasn't like a listed stake. So obviously coming in against much tougher. But horse likes Belmont, and I think has that run style that just is always going to have him in the mix. I think for those underneath spots. So I think Smoking Jay is a good horse to kind of, if you're a vertical player, key underneath in second and third. But not super creative here. I like the two short prices a bit. I like Smoking Jay underneath, and then Chasing Artie is kind of a long shot play for me.
I want to ask, what do you think of Gear Jockey? That's kind of a horse that I feel like I can just never get on the right side of. I just feel like you never know when his good race is coming. But he has like one or two good races a year typically. But for the life of me, I can't ever figure out when they're going to happen. I mean, I've always thought maybe 5 and 5.5 was too sharp. I mean, 6 sort of fits. The draw kind of sucks. I don't know. What'd you guys do with Gear Jockey?
My biggest issue with Gear Jockey is just the post. I mean, he's usable, sure. And if he brings his A game and has one of the, you're right, he does run a couple of really good races a year. If he fires back to that, that turf sprint at Keeneland from last fall, yeah, he's a major player in here. But, they got to negotiate a really wide trip. And I think this is, as opposed to the previous race that we covered from Friday, that's a turf sprint as well. I think this one's going to have a little bit more cluster up front. And I think I don't see how Gear Jockey isn't 6 or 7 wide. And maybe he's good enough. Maybe he does bring that A game, but I just think he's kind of got it up against him at a price that's probably shorter than really his chances of winning.
I mean, looking at his past performances, don't you think that this is like a 7 furlong or 1 mile horse? I mean, he won that Kentucky Downs sprint going 6 furlongs. But we all know that Kentucky Downs plays a lot longer than it actually is. So, and then if you kind of go back even further, the Keeneland race he won back in April of last year was a mile on the turf. So I just maybe think that this horse wants a little bit longer. I don't know if they do a 1-turn mile at Belmont, don't they, in the turf?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think like maybe something like that. Maybe going back to Kentucky Downs. Maybe going down the hill at Santa Anita. I think maybe some of those weirder distances are just a little bit longer.
7 furlongs on the inner at Saratoga would also be a good spot for him.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. He does have a win at 5.5 at Saratoga, which is probably quite a bit sharper, even more than the half furlong would suggest compared to the 6 furlongs here. But I get your point. I mean, he might be better a little bit further
as he comes down the stretch and booms us all.
Yeah, I mean, he's the horse that at 6 or 8 to 1 I could have as a B, but at 4 to 1 I probably don't want.
Our boy Gregorian chant running. What do you think, Caleb? You think we got a shot? You think we got a shot for points? You think we got a shot for points here?
The post really sucks. That's my biggest issue. I didn't like the rail last time. And he got a pretty good ride, but I thought 5.5 was a little too sharp for him in that Churchill Down race. But I think 6 is perfect for him, and he loves 6 furlongs. But the post is tough. He sort of no-showed the one time before he shipped to Belmont, although he did try to press the pace, which is not really his game, so maybe you can excuse that. But I don't know. I mean, Rosario has not been riding very well, I don't think. So that also makes it a little bit tough for me to back, but it'll be a price-dependent play. I mean, he could make my ticket as a B just because, I think he on his day he could win this, but I'm not sure that's going to be his day.
So one other horse I wanted to talk about that none of you guys have brought up, the 8 Scuttlebuzz. Rudy Rod horse is 6 of 8 at the distance, has never missed the exacta at the distance, and is 5 of 6 in the exacta at Belmont. Has won 3 straight coming into this. That last race in the elusive quality looked pretty good. Is this a horse that I think you're going to get every bit of 6 to 1 on this horse? But is this one that you think could kind of shock a few in here?
If you look at the numbers, he's like you said, he's in great form. He's really improved in his last 3 or 4 starts. But to me, I'm not sure what he's really been beating. I mean, Therapist is a nice horse, I guess. He's like a listed stakes heavyweight, maybe like New York bred heavyweight, but definitely not a grade 1 horse. So to me, I mean, I think he's a nice horse. I think I'll probably be inclined to let him beat me and prove to me that he is this good at anything under 10-1.
Okay, that's valid.
Road Warrior saying that the elusive quality year after year is a gold prep for this race, and that's why he has him as his third choice.
Yep, it's the local prep for this race. That's another reason I sort of like Scuttlebuzz. It has been a extremely good feeder of horses that end up winning this race.
I know we've beat this to death, but just one last question. Why can't Change of Control run third, the one horse? I think this horse is going to be 30-1. And looking at time form, this horse fits. I mean, consistently runs figs between 113 and 118. Last couple are right around that 115, 116 mark. I mean, that's only 3 points slower than Arrest Me Red. That's that's faster than Scuttlebuzz. That's faster than Gear Jockey. I mean, she's getting 3 to 7 pounds on the field as the mare in against the boys. Going to save all the ground, but does have some speed. Why can't she run third in this? I don't know that she can win, but why can't she hit the board at 20 or 30?
She can 100% run third. I would not argue that any day. My biggest issue with her is she doesn't have a ton of speed from the rail, and you're going to have all those speed horses outside of her coming around and making her, Manny's going to have to invent a trip because he's going to get run over early, and he's not necessarily.
I mean, when you say, maybe we see this race a little different, but when you say all these speed horses, who are you talking about? I see two, maybe three.
I guess saying speed horses is wrong, but horses that are faster than her, I think Arrest Me Reds are faster early. True Valor, Gray's Creek, Smokin' Jay, Gear Jockey. I think all of them have more early foot than her, and I think she's not going to be on the leader in the top 3. Do you really think that Manny's going to just go full send on her or something?
I mean, I'll give you the first two, Chasing Artie and True Valor, but if Gear Jockey's ahead of her going into the first turn, something has gone terribly wrong.
I mean, Change of Control has pressed LZ before, and LZ is was a very fast horse early. I don't know about it anymore, but
I don't think people always respect the difference between 5.5 and 6. I mean, in terms of the pace and whatnot, I mean, there's quite often, especially 5.5 at Churchill, that's a quick surface compared to going, 6 at Belmont. So I think she'll be in the top half, if not better, but we'll see.
Hey, Jimmy, give me a second. I will be able to answer your question. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, I was going to say you can get to his query up his 12 and 13 post. A couple people talking about Smokin' Jay. I talked about him briefly. I like him underneath. I don't think he can win. If I were a ABC player, he would be like a C type for me. But I definitely am going to want to use him underneath in second and third in like tries and exactas.
Hey Jimmy, to answer your question, somewhat limited sample size, but the 11 hole is 0% out of 34 starts. The 10 and 12 holes are both in that like 10% range on the win side. So actually they do fairly okay. Obviously 1, 2, 3 paths are the best going 6 by quite a bit. So, maybe I'll give Caleb a little more credit for Change of Control than I would have otherwise.
All right, let's keep going. Another one-horse race. That mile in the dirt. The reason why Vacoma is at stud.
I'm so frustrated with this race because Met Mile is one of my favorite races of the year, like literally one of my top 5 favorite races of the year. In the last 3 or 4 years, the same thing has happened where you have a extremely short priced favorite and sort of everybody ducks the one major player and it comes up as a small field and it's just not as compelling as it was, 10 or 20 years ago when it was a major sire maker type race. I think everybody wanted Jack Christopher to land here. I know Twitter was in an uproar that they did not come into this spot. I don't know if that was a politics thing, or they were, they think Jack Christopher's a little better, a little shorter, or they just didn't want to run versus Flightline. But I mean, with Flightline's layoff lines, this may be the last time we ever see Flightline run. So, I mean, Flightline towers over this field. There's no way to get around it. He needs to, either the jack needs to fall off, or he needs to bring, his absolute, like, I don't know, D tier game. Like, he needs to absolutely just toss the worst race of his career by quite a bit to get beat here. So I have, he's got tons of speed, can make his own race. The only thing here that maybe is, sometimes Sadler horses don't ship the best, and he has never run outside of the state of California, and honestly outside Santa Anita or Del Mar. So you sort of have to hope for one of those, freakish, something weird happens, or he just doesn't take the service or doesn't ship, or those types of things to happen. He's, I mean, 3 to 5 is probably value at him if you can get it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you were talking about Jack Christopher or Jackie's Warrior earlier, but Jack Christopher's 3, which is probably why he's not here.
I'm sorry, I meant Jackie's Warrior.
That's what I figured.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's disappointing Jackie didn't show up, but I have a ton of respect for Speaker's Corner. I think he's probably, the second best miler in the country. But I don't think anyone in this field breathes the same air as Flightline right now. I tried to beat Flightline in the Malibu. I tried to beat him in his optional 40. This horse does stance and represents everything that I don't trust in horse racing, with crazy layoffs, breaks, injuries, quarter cracks, doesn't ship, doesn't race against big fields, doesn't race at a mile. But what he's done in just 3 starts, and even despite all that adversity, you just really can't take anything away from that. I'm not going to overthink this one. I think he's just way, way, way too good, and I just hope we get to eventually see him tee off against maybe a horse like Jackie's Warrior or Life is Good one day. Speaker's Corner is an amazing horse. He's just a little bit unlucky to run the Flightline in this spot.
I mean, is Flightline just Catalina Cruiser 2.0?
I mean, I could see how somebody would say that, but no, I think the Flightline is much more proven than Catalina Cruiser.
Where's your boy at? Where's Life is Good?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Where's the generational talent?
He's they said he was gonna have one race, I think, before the Whitney, and then go to Breeders' Cup. So I'm guessing they're just waiting a little bit longer, but I don't know.
I thought for sure that Life is Good would show up here, and that we were going to finally see Life is Good against Flightline, but that's a shame. He
didn't want to take. He was really afraid of Happy Saver, so he didn't want to throw Life is Good against Happy Saver.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a good chance that maybe Flightline doesn't run back to his last fig, or any of his last figs, but I think even like his maiden figure might win this race. So yeah, this is just Flightline in the walk. I wish there was someone else we could take, but
So
I mean, we said this last year though. And who won last year? Was it not Silver Prospector? Who won last year?
In the Met Mile?
Yeah,
Silver State.
Silver State.
There we go.
Yeah, and no one saw that one coming. So, I mean, any chance that we get an upset like that here?
I mean, there's a chance, I think. I mean, if you figure Flightline's never shipped out of California, Sadler historically does not ship very well. Flightline's never gone a mile. There's reasons to think he's coming off a big layoff. Like, there's reasons to think he may not show up with his effort. And if what knocks Flightline out is the fact that he goes 21-44 with Speaker's Corner, then yeah, I mean, I guess there's a chance you see an upset, but I don't think it's likely. I think the top 2 are so much better than the other ones that they could probably go head and head, and whoever wins that matchup still probably, holds on and beats the remaining 3.
I mean, we've also said this a few times before. With Breeders' Cup Sprint a couple years ago, where you had a 3 to 5 favorite that no showed, and I mean, things happen. You don't know. I think it's a bigger conversation. Obviously, we all know Flightline's miles the best in this race. It becomes, how do you structure tickets around Flightline? Do you, if you're a horizontal player, do you just try to single through Flightline, or do you try to play the calamity play, which is you toss Flightline and maybe buy the rest of the field? How are you thinking about approaching this from a ticket construction standpoint?
I mean, I'm going to say what I think Josh is going to say, and I think you have to single flight line or toss. Given the amount of chalk and short fields that are in this entire sequence and in this card, I don't think you can afford to use flight line and Speaker's Corner or flight line and any other horse. If you're going against flight line, I don't care if you use the other 4 horses in the field. That's fine with me. But I think you need to have an opinion one way or the other on flight line.
I mean, literally the only way I think you could use both of them is if you don't like Latruska. You don't like
I don't think you could
Latruska.
use both of them if you don't use Latruska or Malafat, and maybe you like Love Bonnie South or something, maybe. But I don't think a Malafat justifies being able to use Flightline and Speaker's Corner.
Yeah, I think you lose too much equity using both of them. But yeah, because I mean, no one else in this race is going to take any money but these two. I don't think. I mean, maybe Happy Saver comes down a little bit, but I mean,
I know a lot of people like Happy Saver in this spot, and I just don't see it. I mean, if anything, I think he's better going maybe a little bit longer, cutting back to a 1-turn mile against, 2 just absolutely free courses. I mean, I don't see it. You could finish third, though, with Road Warrior. I mean, I could see that.
Is there any chance that you get a sort of Frosted type performance where I think everybody was like, why are they cutting Frosted back to a mile? He was doing better going further, and then he absolutely freaks and runs the best race of his career.
No, I don't see it. I mean, he could run the best race of his career and still run third.
This is also true. Yeah.
I actually, honestly, I think I would take a look at exacta probables on this, and if you use Flightline, I mean, see what like a Flightline Aloha West or a Flightline Informative exacta's paying. That might be a play. I mean, if you're trying to make money in this race, I think that's the only way you're going to be able to do it, and that's just because of the pace type. But like you said, the 2 short prices could just go merry-go-round and just not even move. So I don't know. I think you single Flightline and you just turn this pick 5 into a pick 4.
I will say, I know we've been giving Naira crap for small field sizes and, whatever. But I will say well done by them in this spot for not having this race be a part of the 2-day pick 6. They skipped around it. I think they really saw the field and then they went other places. So well done by them.
All right, let's get to what the people wanted to see. This is what the people came here for. Race 10, the Grade 1 Caleb Knight Stakes, 1.25 miles on the inner turf. Of course, we're talking about the Manhattan here, the Resorts World Casino, Manhattan. I've yet to go to Resorts World in Vegas. I know that's the casino in Aqueduct. But
I tried to, and you guys didn't want to go.
Did you?
I did.
We should have gone.
You said you wanted to just hang out at Cosmo.
Well, just so I don't get skunked by Caleb and Mark, I'm gonna take this one first, real quick here. And what's gonna be funny is you guys are not gonna be on any of these horses in this spot. But I thought this is a very wide open race. I know you're gonna have a short price like Gouffroy in this race. Adamo is 4-1. Santon at 7-2. But I don't know. I think there's a couple of mid prices in this race that I think have a big shot. I'm actually going to start with the number 8 here, Highland Chief, who won the Man of War last time out. I know is going to be cutting back quite a bit, but Highland Chief beat Gouffo last time out, beat a Sammy Meatball special in Yabir, and I mean, you're getting 6-1 on a horse that's already beaten the favorite in this race. I don't know. I thought the fig looked pretty strong, and I'm not. I mean, he's just going to be on my tickets. I mean, the horse won last out, is won at Belmont on this inner turf. Like I said, it is cutting back, but I don't see why this horse can't repeat there at a nice price. And then. The other horse I'm interested in at a nice price is going to be the 1. The other Chad, L'Emperador. Now you get, of course, I mean, Chad probably, he's just calling whoever, and Eric Cancel's probably like 7th or 8th on his call list. But won on a yielding turf course here in the inner turf at Fort Marcy. And I'm not sure exactly what the weather is looking like, but there's a bit of cut in the ground today. If we get any more rain, which I know on Saturday I'm not supposed to, I don't know about tomorrow,
They're calling
but
for a little bit late Saturday.
if we get a little cut in the grass, why can't this horse repeat last time out? Eric Cancel stays aboard. Did beat Fake Chad Extraordinaire Sacred Life, but also beat Glen County, who's a nice little horse. Obviously, not beating the class of horses that are running in this race, but. Won a nice little grade 2 at Belmont. Has won at Belmont, and if you get a little cut in the grass, I mean, 15-1. I'll take a shot on the other Chad here. But what are you thinking here, Mark?
Believe it or not, you said, "Hey, I bet you guys are not going to be on my 2 horses at all." Want to guess who my top 2 horses were, Josh?
Who are they?
You just named both of them. We are on the same exact 2 horses. Now, I looked at this race, and there's a bunch of horses here that this is just way too sharp for. I think at this point in his career, I think Gufo wants to go further than this. I think Rock Emperor wants to go further than this. And I definitely know Channel Maker wants to go further than this. So I want none of those 3. And when you toss those 3 out, all of a sudden this becomes a really interesting betting race. I ended up with the same 2 horses as Josh, L'Emperador, who, this seems to be the right distance. The horse is 3 for 3 at the distance. And, he has enough tactical speed to be involved a little bit earlier, where a lot of these are 1-run deadpan closers. And the other horse that I sort of ended up on was Highland Chief. I thought that Man of War was a really good race. Now, Josh says it's a cutback. It's only an 1/8 of a mile cutback. I'm not too worried about that. And I thought that Highland Chief made a ton of sense here. And, and I think then also, Santon, although I've tried to beat this horse numerous times, seems to be in good form. Although he just seems too slow on paper, he seems to like winning. So I thought, Santon makes some sense in here, but I actually have him listed as a B, and then I have L'Emperador and Highland Chief as my 2 A's.
Yeah, I'm pretty simple in here. I'm not using any of the Chad Brown horses. I think they're all a bunch of rats. Especially this one horse that you guys. I mean, you like that horse. I don't understand that for saving my fucking life. I mean, he wins a race over a heavy turf course that they timed on a sundial, and all of a sudden, with Eric Cancel up, that's your bet. I mean, more power to you. Adamo, no thanks, not for me. In Love, probably a miler. Rock Emperor, yeah, right. Tribavon, yeah, maybe if it was 2020, but not anymore. I do kind of like Highland Chief. I'll kind of give you that one. I think he's interesting in here. That last race sort of seemed like it came out of nowhere, and that was a pretty big career top for him. Coming back on about a month, I'm just not sure how he's going to respond to that. He's relatively lightly raced, so I guess he has a right to, not necessarily bounce off that race. But I also think he sort of lucked out in that Grade 1 win. The pace setter, Abon, just totally folded up and didn't run a step. Abir really whiffed the brake pretty bad. So Highland Chief kind of just tripped out. I mean, I'm not against him, but at 6-1, I would be. I think I would need double digits to go there. For me, it's all about Santon. I think this is the best horse in the race. He's carried some pretty high expectations and did kind of disappoint a few times, but it seemed like adding the blinkers last time made all the difference. He was able to be forwardly placed. And if you watch the turf races at Churchill over the Derby and Oaks weekend, it was nigh impossible to win a turf route on the lead. Every single race was just dominated with that outside flow closer bias. Santon was up and fairly close to the pace for the entire race. The pace setter finished, 8 or 10 lengths back, who was, I can't remember the horse. Oh, it was Trubavon. Yeah, finished, 10 lengths back of Santon in that race. And, Santon ran excellent. He really dug in when he saw Mirror Mission and was able to hold him off. Owns the best last out and best overall time form fit in the field, unless I guess you go way back on Channel Maker. So to me, it's all about Santon. He'll be a lone A for me. I may have a little bit of love for Highland Chief, but for me, it's really all about Santon, and that's probably it. I'm probably not going to get too creative, and I'd hate to use a horse like Gufo defensively.
There's another horse in this race that you kind of stopped at 9.
I don't see any horse after 9. My form just ends. Channel Maker, if this was a mile and a half, I think I would be genuinely interested in Channel Maker. But I just don't think he's as good at a mile and a quarter. He's never hit the board at this distance. And he kind of had his race last time. I mean, this is not a horse that's been able to really put good races together in a long time. I just, if somebody like Highland Chief or specifically Trubavon were to scratch, then perhaps Channel Maker gets a little interesting. But with Chad Brown having, 17 entries in this race, I'm sure he's going to designate one of them as the speed. So I just don't think Channel Maker gets the trip he needs.
If this course comes up good or yielding, I'm using. I'm serious. I mean, especially if we get any kind of price.
It was rated. I would say it was rated good today, and it's going to be dry until Saturday. I see no way that this comes up. Okay. Maybe it's on the good side of fast, good side of firm, but I just don't see it.
Oh, Road Warrior thinks that the shorter distance helps Channel Maker as he gets older.
I mean, it's not like he gets to park in the handicap stall. I mean, he's still got to beat the other horses.
Yeah, I think Road Warrior is insane. I just don't see. I mean, you don't cut back an 8-year-old. That's not how it happens historically. Normally horses as they get older tend to do better at more marathon distances. I just don't think he has the turn of foot to be a player with a younger Santon or other horses like that. Especially when there's relatively no pace in this race.
Yeah, I don't hate Santon in this spot. Of the short prices, I think that would be the horse I would use as well. I haven't really dug deep into how I'm going to structure anything, but Santon could make my tickets. It's really the only of the short price sources that I'm interested in at all.
And honestly, Caleb, Trivia Fan might set up Santon because I would imagine of the Chads that are most likely to go, he's got to be your one that goes. Because that's what they basically, he basically set up Santon last time out. Why would this time be that much different?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Race 11. Grade 1 Belmont Stakes. We'll be going 1.5 miles here for 3-year-olds. The third leg of the Triple Crown, and none of the big name horses showed up.
Well, one of them did.
Oh, Rich Strike?
I mean, he did win the Derby. I mean, that does probably make him one of the big names, does it not? Yeah. I mean, I realize he's sort of like everybody wants to laugh at the horse, but he did win the Derby, and it wasn't through a bullshit DQ. It was a legitimate. He actually won the Derby.
So, Caleb, have you recorded your video yet with Capone?
I have, just today.
It posted today?
It didn't get posted yet. It'll get posted probably tomorrow morning.
Okay. I was going to ask. I was like, since it's already out there, like, did you want to go first here? But
it doesn't matter to me.
It doesn't matter to you? We the people?
No.
Okay.
I'll admit I don't feel like I have a good grip on the Belmont Stakes this year. And it's mostly from a pace perspective that anyone with half a brain can look at We the People and be like, yeah, this horse is going to get loose. I mean, no doubt, right? But I just don't trust this horse. And I don't know why exactly. I mean, he beat a field of absolute nobodies in the Peter Pan over a good sealed strip where he was just dummy loose on a slow pace. Again, I mean, his option, the Oaklawn form, I don't think has been strong all year. And the races that he won in Oaklawn were really bad. And then the one kind of sort of real field he faced in the Arkansas Derby, he was just awful. I mean, yeah, maybe he was, overheated. He got, washy that day and just didn't really show up. I mean, I guess if you want to forgive that, you can as lone speed, but at 2-1, I can't trust this horse. I can't do it. I don't know if he wants to go this far off a huge race less than a month ago. I don't know if he repeats or moves forward rather than moves backward. I just don't trust him. So that being said, there's no second speed who I would normally default to in this race. I mean, I guess you could argue for Skippy Longstocking or Nest, but neither of those do much for me. So instead, I'm just kind of taking it's a 1.5 mile race. I'm going to pick the horse who I think is the best horse kind of approach, which lands on Mo Donegal, the number 6. I'll be kind of the first one to admit that when I'm handicapping a horse, I genuinely toss the Kentucky Derby from a horse's running lines. I just don't give it that much credit. I know it's like one of the biggest races in our sport, but it's the only time in 99% of these horses' careers they're ever going to be in a 20 horse field in front of 150,000 people as a 3-year-old going a mile and a quarter. So it's just such an odd race, and there's so many trips that happen. There's so many biases at play. I don't think it's very representative of a horse's true ability more often than not. So I'm kind of tossing that race, although it's not like he ran poorly. I mean, he still broke from the rail, came out last, and got up for fifth in a race that admittedly came back to the closers. But I thought the Wood Memorial here is the reason I'm kind of backing him. I thought that that's the best piece of form anyone in this race actually has. I mean, that Wood Memorial came back really good. We saw early voting come back to win the Preakness. And that was a race where early voting in the Wood, he kind of had the lead to himself. The fractions were modest. I mean, they weren't lightning quick by any stretch. And Mo Donegal still was able to close from last to get the jump on him, going a mile and an eighth. I think Mo Donegal wants to run all day. He'll run every step of a mile and a half. And I think he's just the best horse in this field. I think Pletcher's has pretty good success in this race and in New York in general. I think Mo Donegal's the best horse. And in a small field with only one speed, I don't think Mo Donegal's going to be last. I actually expect him to be probably more like mid-pack.
Go for it, Mark. I know you want to jump in.
No, I mean, I want to bash Caleb on the fact that he does nothing but beat on aqueduct figures and complains about how poor of a race the Wood is, and then he's going back and using that in a reference to make a case for Mo Donegal. But I'll just leave that at that. No, I think for me, when I look at this, the Belmont historically, you would think going longer that this would be a closer fest, but historically it's not been. The Belmont Stakes have almost always won off the front end. Controlling pace types that can get the distance do really, really, really well here. And so I just sort of ended up landing on We the People. I don't love taking the favorite, and there's other horses in here who've arguably run faster. But I think We the People makes a ton of sense. I think he's going to be controlling pace. We don't know if he can get the distance. We don't know if anybody else in here can get the distance. So I think he inherits a somewhat comfortable lead. I trust Flavian to not be a moron on the front end. And I think he's the improving type, and he probably can take another step forward here. And the other horse, which everybody sort of all the wise guys are absolutely beating the crap out of, is Rich Strike. And I think, what really is Rich Strike done wrong? They started him off on dirt, ran a bunch of dirt races. They moved him to synthetic at Turfway. He obviously kept getting better and better and better, but just wasn't winning. But there's a pretty good argument to be made that synthetic is not the surface he wants. And then he goes and takes a massive step forward in the Kentucky Derby. If you're a time form person, his time form figure is the fastest in the race, and he's got a pedigree that is just as good at. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, he shouldn't have gotten a mile a quarter with his pedigree, but we don't really know what these Keen Ices are, and we know that Keen Ice ran pretty damn okay when he ran in the Belmont. So I think that Rich Strike is pretty interesting here. And if you get into your morning line, he's win bettable for me, albeit I think there's probably a chance he takes some money and it's a little shorter, but at 7-2, I'm super interested in him.
I do have to jump in and say, first off, Mark, he's not the fastest horse in the race. There's 3 horses that run faster than him in his last out race. And as far as the Belmont being won by speed horses, 3 times in the last 22 years has it been wired. So I know I've seen that all over Twitter is like people think it's a long race, so it's going to benefit closers, and it doesn't. Like you want the speed horses, and yeah, you don't want dead closers, but that's true of any race in dirt racing. 3 times since 2000 has the race been wired on the lead, 2 of which were Baffert Triple Crown winners. So I'm not convinced We the People's in that category.
Can I also jump in and say that, Mark, you started off by saying you don't like taking the favorite. You love taking the favorite.
They win 33% of the time, right?
I actually agree with Mark on Rich Strike. I think that people are real quick to just kind of just be like, oh, well, whatever, it was a fluke. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not like it's not like we exactly have world beaters in this race. He basically needs to be Mo Donegal and just some random allowance horse that's going to get out on the front end. So, I mean, I think he's got a good shot in this. He's in this spot, especially if he gets ignored on the board. I think he might present a little bit of value. But man, I'm really going on a limb on this one, guys. I'm taking the filly. I'm going to take Nest. I hate Nest. I hate Nest as a horse. I think that this horse was just a complete and utter just toss in the Kentucky Oaks, and just got blown up by Secret Oath, and I felt so good. But I started looking at some of the pedigree in this race, and I mean, you got AP on the bottom, you got Curl on the top. I think that this horse might have the best distance pedigree out of all the horses in this race. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Caleb. I know you're a little bit more of a pedigree nerd than I am.
No, the pedigree is definitely there. I'm just curious about it. I mean, from visually, what about the way she finished the Oaks makes you think she wants to go farther?
Oh, absolutely nothing visually about that Oaks makes me think that she's going to go further. But I'm trying to. I kind of was trying to get in the headspace that you were talking about, Caleb. I mean, I feel like We the People's almost a must use because of the pace scenario. But when you start thinking about it, if I'm trying to think, okay, maybe this race doesn't get wired, who's going to sit in second? And I think Ness is going to be the horse that's going to kind of sit in second just off the pace in this spot. I mean, I like Ness more than I like Skippy Longstocking. I like Ness more than I like, Creative Minister. And then now you're stuck with all deep closers. So, I mean, it's kind of a matter of elimination. It's kind of a matter of, hey, there is some kind of distance pedigree there. And so I'll take a shot at what's probably going to be the fourth or fifth choice in this race. As I'm like trying to hold back coughs. Holy cow. But yeah, I think Nest and Rich Strike are where I'm going to land. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do with We the People. The pace nerd in me wants to use and single, but I just kind of get the willies just like you, Caleb. I just don't trust this horse. And everybody was talking like, wait, We the People's just going to wire. We the People's going to wire. So I mean, is this horse even going to be shorter than 2-1? I don't know about that. I think Mo Donegal might end up being your favorite in the spot, just because of name recognition, just because of the fact that people do not believe that Rich Strike can repeat, and I mean, just because of Todd. So I don't know. Maybe we do end up getting a price on We the People. I'm not sure, but it's going to be an interesting race to be sure. It's not the best race, but I'm excited to watch it, and hopefully have some live tickets here so I can tear them up when Mo Donegal wins.
I think we have to talk a little bit. And I don't hate the Nest pick, Josh. I tried to get there, but I just couldn't. But for the same reasons as you, I tried to get there. And I agree with both of you on Rich Strike. I think that's a horse that if you like, you want to try to get to him horizontally, because I think he takes all the stupid public money. Similar to Fenwick being like 10-1 or whatever he was in the Preakness 3 weeks ago, or Fenway, whatever his name was. But the horse I think we have to talk a little bit about is Creative Minister, because I've seen a lot of buzz about this horse on Twitter and in Discord and wherever else. I mean, for me personally, I think this is a horse that has developed a lot in a very short amount of time. He's not good enough to win, and I think he's more likely to have a bad race than to have a career top. I mean, he basically ran the Kentucky Derby schedule, just started it off in an undercard race as opposed to the Derby itself. But I know a lot of people like this horse. I mean, Murphy and a few others. So where'd you guys land on Creative Minister?
I quite honestly, I'm going to try to get live to the entire field in this race, but just with some structure to it. Creative Minister is a horse I want to be live to, but I have Creative Minister as a C. I don't know. I don't really necessarily know why, other than it just doesn't feel like the kind of connections or the kind of horse that wins the Belmont. I don't necessarily know if that's, I realize tap it on the bottom end, I get it, but I don't really know if that's the kind of pedigree that wants to get a 1.5 miles. And yeah, if you believe, it's sort of interesting because that figure that came back in that losing effort in the Preakness came back huge on both Time Forum and Bayer. And I'm normally the speed guy. I don't know. I know you kind of mentioned before. Sometimes horses just like I don't really trust them. I guess that's where I land on Creative Minister. I just don't really trust him.
I sort of think that Pimlico Fig was pretty juiced too, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, because I think that track was amazing, just insanely biased that day. So
there's a little baby Z pattern there, Caleb.
Yeah, baby one there is.
Jay saying that Mo Donegal reminds him of Tax.
Tax.
Remember Tax?
Interesting comparison, but okay.
Yeah, because especially since wasn't Tax early like an EP type?
Yeah, he was like a leader EP type, I think.
Tax was the horse that was kind of like to hit the board, but just never liked to win, right? Like, and I guess I sort of for that way of shaping it, I guess I kind of agree.
What?
That Tax and Mo Donegal are kind of.
I thought
really
you were talking
similar.
about Sixer's comment. He says he likes Nest too. This race is easier than the Oaks.
No, I mean I can't get to Nest. I just can't. I mean, there were horses like Secret Oath beat Nest. I don't think I haven't seen that super filly in this year's class. What's the case for Nest? There are better fillies out there, and she's gotten beaten by them. And we've already proven that the filly that beat her couldn't beat the boys. So how are you getting to her being good enough to beat this field? I realize this isn't the best Belmont in history, but she's no Rags to Riches. She's no Rachel Alexandra. She's no Zenyatta. She's not one of those super fillies that goes up and can beat the boys. I don't see it. And I mean, I'll let the betting public have fun, but that's just a horse that I have no real interest in.
But you'll have.
Yeah, defensively.
Yeah, I mean,
Brian's not here. Someone has to do it.
Who's the McPeak horse that won the Preakness a couple years ago?
Swiss Skydiver.
Yeah, you're naming all these horses. Do we just need a Swiss Skydiver here? We don't need to get that good.
Yeah, but we knew Swiss Skydiver was really freaking good going into that Preakness, and I mean, I think at that point in time, I think we thought much more highly of Swiss Skydiver than we do of Nest. And Secret Oath took her shot at versus the boys, and we thought, oh, geez, maybe she could be one of those types, and she proved she wasn't. But then she went back and beat all the girls in the Kentucky Oaks. So I just don't see it. I just really don't see it. Yeah, and I mean, Kevin, I agree with you. He has. He's a great, he's a good trainer. I have, no qualms about that. Yeah.
I like how you stopped great and rephrased it to good.
Yeah.
You can't really trust anything that Peak says. He's one of the most talks up his horses. Every horse is the best horse. He's like Dale Romans, that every horse is the best horse he's ever had. And he's a tough guy to believe.
Well, we probably got time to fit one more in. Was there anything you want to look at on Friday, Mark?
Oh man. I don't know. I mean, I think you have a lot of on Friday what you had today or on Saturday, where a lot of fields that I think are pretty logical. They're either one or two major players. I had a hard time getting to them. I don't know. I wanted to kind of ask, our audience, is any races, anybody, I know I had a couple people message me asking what we were covering and, were there any races that they were having a hard time with, or people had messaged me saying they were having a hard time with certain races. And I want to know if there any we haven't covered that somebody would want to hear us talk about.
Saturday really likes Barber Road.
He's an honest horse. I'll go with that.
He is an honest horse, and yeah.
Who was I was just thinking about this. Didn't Rosario won the Belmont? Was it 2 years ago with Sir Winston? Is that 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
5 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 5. Yeah.
No, I don't think I've even been betting on horses for 5 years.
I mean, the last 2 years it was Essential Quality and 'Tis the Law.
So 3 years ago.
So it was 2019.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
What's the difference? Feels like 5 years ago.
And he was the other Cassius in that race.
So maybe we can frame it this way: on Friday, there's a couple of short prices, right? Who's the most beatable?
I mean, I think there's probably more short prices on Saturday, honestly, but
Yeah, but the short prices on Saturday are unbeatable. That's the difference.
well, it feels like I guess if you're really asking then of the short prices between, like Rogier in the New York, Jackie's Warrior in the True North, and then I don't know if you're counting 2-1 a short price for Outbox, but then even money on Bella Sophia. I guess that's kind of your options there.
Oh, is the Echo Zulu race on Saturday?
It's on Saturday.
I think for me the most likely winner is what you're asking, Josh. I think for
No,
me,
most likely loser. Who do you think's the one that you can upset?
I was saying because of all the short prices all weekend, I think Bella Sophia is your most likely winner. Let me think about that one for a second.
Ooh, I would not agree with that.
Really?
What, that McPeak is like me? I talk up my horse.
No,
and
I would
wins?
agree with that. That's right. I would not agree Bella Sophia is your most likely winner of the weekend by at all. I would put like 4 horses in front of her. But
I would think. I don't know. This is a bit of a random. I have a random dislike for this horse, and I have no idea why. But I think Jackie's Warrior is probably your most likely short price horse to be beat. And I have no real good reason for it. No way that it sets up, or no sort of thing in my head that this is going to happen, or the horse bounces, or one of those sort of things. I just think Jackie's Warrior occasionally tosses a clunker, and I think at 2-5, a horse that every 3 or 4 races throws a clunker is a little scary to me.
Dave's asking about the Brooklyn, and I think Mark, you might have asked Caleb about the Brooklyn earlier, right? This is the Lone Rock race.
I mean, I think Lone Rock's too good for that field. I think there isn't a horse in training that's as good at this distance on dirt as Lone Rock. I mean, he kind of had the one stinker 3 back, which was our distance that was just too short for him when he went to the Razorback. But anytime he gets to this 1 3/8, 1.5 1.25 distance, he's just a different animal. So I think he's too good for this race. Even though the Figs don't necessarily tell the same story, I don't think you can just overwhelmingly trust the Figs because a lot of these horses haven't tried this distance yet. So it's not really clear that they're going to necessarily repeat that effort. So for me, I think Lone Rock is just much the horse to beat. But
I tend to agree with Caleb. He's 5 or 6 to the distance. He just seems like a different horse going this far. I know I've heard a few people that were very much against him. I think he's a very likely winner in that race. The other horse I thought was a little interesting was First Constitution, but again, he doesn't have a pedigree that jumps off the page at you and screams, going 12 furlongs. So
he's Chilean on the bottom though.
He is Chilean, and I know that we know those Chilean horses run forever and boom Josh. So. Or almost boom Josh or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know that I hadn't looked at this race yet, but I have a hard time getting to anybody to beat Lone Rock in this race. Murphy liked Warren, right?
Murphy really liked Warren.
Warren First Constitution, I think.
Yeah, my concern with Warren is he doesn't win that often. And I don't really know if going further makes him more likely to win. I mean, it feels like Warren's going to take money just on connections with, Cox and Pratt. I don't get to why I've heard a few people who are very smart handicappers like Greg saying that they are interested in Warren. And I can't understand the why when they're talking about the horse.
Yeah, for me, dirt marathons are filled of horses that fall into 1 or 2 categories. The first one is the much smaller of the two, maybe like 10 or 20% of any given field. And it's the horses that are genuinely just dirt marathon specialists, horses like Lone Rock, maybe a horse like Last Samurai, back in the
Rocketry.
day. Rocketry back in the day. You had others like that are just genuinely better at these marathon distances. But
that was a horse that boomed my Chilean horse, FYI.
At like 20 to 1 or something. But 80% of the horses that are in these races aren't in these races because they're dramatically better at dirt marathons. They're in these races because they can't compete with your top of the line dirt routers going 1 1/8 or 1.25 miles or even a 1-turn, a 2-turn mile. They're just not good enough. Horses like Warrant, horses like Max Player, First Constitution. I think Fearless, I'm afraid, maybe fits into that category. They're here just because they're not good enough to go take on a mile and an eighth grade one. And this is kind of the next best place to go for those horses, especially when they get older in their career. Just feels like that's kind of where they end up.
Yeah, I mean, Jay's asking, I got it. It's going to pay me to say this, but I do kind of like Max Player a little bit in the spot. He's a horse that, maybe he does fall into that category of, he ends up here because he's just kind of not competitive anymore, going shorter. Obviously has a lot of layoff lines in his career. And doesn't have a huge amount of starts for a 5-year-old, but I mean, his Jockey Club Gold Cup and his Suburban were both really huge efforts. Breeders' Cup Classic, he was just straight outmatched, and I don't really know what happened in the El Shiba. But I think it's interesting he lands here. I think you're going to get a bit of a price. There was a point in time where we thought Max Player was an absolute monster, and I think I'm a little interested in him in this spot. Maybe going a little bit further, does him some good.
I mean, and again, I also don't hate Max Player in this spot, but only because
probably doesn't have to. He doesn't have to be a monster here to win, right? He just has to be better than everybody else. There's no monster in this race, especially when Caleb and I are sitting here.
There's no monster. I mean, Lone Rock is probably a monster, right? At this distance.
I mean, I don't think Lone Rock is at this distance. I think Lone Rock is really good, but I don't think Lone Rock is a real monster. And there's also an argument to be made for Lone Rock that every time he I realize he did win this race last year, with the exception of that, though. He beat Tizamazician and Moretti. But beyond that, it seems like every time he sort of stepped up in class, he's kind of flopped. It hasn't kind of fired a big race. So I like Lone Rock. I think he makes a ton of sense in here, but I wouldn't want to get super aggressive to him.
Well, Mark, how many graded stakes at a mile and a half on the dirt are there? I mean, the 2 times he's showed up, and then the Razorback, which is way too short. I mean, it's hard to knock him for, ducking people in races that don't card.
Yeah, I have a hard, the only horse I think I would want to take in here other than Lone Rock would be Max Player, but most just because when you look at Max Player's best races, they're all at a mile and a quarter. I mean, and unfortunately, there's not that many races I think really carded for him. So I think the only way that he's going to be able to get kind of a full campaign is if he does start mixing in some of these longer races. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how Max Player runs here. I have a feeling you're not going to get even close to 6-1 just because of name recognition. But I think Lone Rock's going to be tough to beat here.
I agree.
All right. My cough is somehow getting worse, so I think we're gonna wrap up here. Any parting thoughts here, Mark, on these next 2 days?
Yeah, I think pretty interesting cards. Obviously, I know everybody's complaining, and I think rightfully so, that these came up light and we don't have 20 horse super competitive fields. But I don't think there's a lot of horses you go, oh geez, I wanted to see this horse run and he's not here, with the exception of a couple of horses we hoped would land in the Met Mile who decided to skip. They're competitive races. You're going to have to pick your spots. You've obviously 5-horse fields making, you're going to have to use leverage, or you're going to have to be, sharp to get through them. You're not going to have big spready fields. So pick your spots. And, I honestly think it's a really good card. I mean, you're going to see some really good racing, very competitive races. And yeah, it should be a really, really good weekend.
Caleb, I made you big so you could do your rant now.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a good weekend. And it used to be like the second best weekend in racing, which is what makes it so disappointing. But it's just not. I mean, the Friday card is objectively better than the Saturday card from a wagering perspective. I mean, yeah, Saturday's a great card if you want to watch big name horses run against each other and bet $2 a race. But if you're actually looking to bet and make money, it's just every race feels like there's going to be a 3-5 and an 8-5, and you can't really use them both. So you're just kind of coin flipping between Flightline and Speaker's Corner, or Latruska and Malafat, or Jack Christopher's a free space, Jackie's Warrior is a free space. I mean, Bella Sophia is a free space. You're coin flipping between Echo Zulu and Matarea. Like, there's just no depth. I mean, it's 5-horse fields, so you're going to get too many people that can afford to use the two logicals in each race and play their 2x2x2x2x2 pick fives for $16. It's a lousy betting card. Friday's the better betting card. I'll play both because I'm a degenerate, but Friday is the better betting card for sure. Saturday, you just gotta force opinions. I mean, if you don't know if Echo Zulu beats Matarea, you just gotta fucking pick one, because you can't afford to take two horses like that, because it just kills your equity in the long run. So I think you just have to have an opinion, or just not play the sequence and play some pick threes around the more spready races, like maybe the Manhattan or the Brooklyn or the Jaipur. But yeah, very disappointed in the quality, or not the quality of the fields, but in the size of the fields. I think we just have too many stakes these days, too many opportunities for horses to pick up big fat checks running against four nobodies, and this is what happens.
I mean, this is the reason why I always say that the Kentucky Derby is the best betting day of the year, and it has nothing to do with the quality of racing. Although the quality is very high, it's probably easily top five like quality of races of the year. But I mean, the reason why it's just unmatched is because just those big fields, and even worst case is like you got 20 horses in that last race. So even if you get a chalky pick five, like you're going to be, you could be live to something if you like even somewhat of a price in that last leg. So it's tough. I don't think it's as bad as Preakness the year Justify won, where the pick six paid $40, but for 20 cents, but it's pretty close. But who knows? I mean, there might just be a bunch of upsets, and we all look like a bunch of idiots like usual. But even so, like, I don't know. It's a little disappointing. We'll see what the 4th of July card looks like to wrap up Belmont, and then hopefully we don't have. I mean, Saratoga is always stacked, so hopefully we get some nice cards there leading back into the the end of the summer. So. Oh, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it as always for you guys spending your time with us. As usual, you can catch us at @wrong_lead on Twitter. Our handles are here. Caleb will be on. He'll have a video up with Horse Racing Nation. You can catch all of his stuff on his Twitter. He links all the places he is. You can always bug Mark in Discord, and please DM him and ask him about running group tickets. That's his favorite thing possible. So just please continue to message him about group tickets. And then, if you guys haven't, make sure you sign up for AmWager. If you guys are looking for sign-up bonus, if you're trying to still, maybe newer to the game and haven't cleared all the bonuses, check out AmWager. I think there's a $300 deposit match going on. We have a code, and it helps us out, helps us, pay the bills and get our stuff going. We missed Brian today, so hit him up on Twitter too. He's at BD Horseplayer, and we will catch you guys later. Shout out to Keep Pounding.